Dr. Atul Chavan, Chancellor of Amity University, Amol Chavan, Executive Director, Professor Balvinder Shukla, Vice Chancellor of Amity University, Dr. Selvamurthy, President, Amity Science Tech Innovation Foundation, and Chancellor, Amity University, Chhattisgarh, Dr. B.K. Das, Director General, Electronics and Communication Systems, DRDO, and our honored guest today, distinguished ex-servicemen, senior officers from the Indian Armed Forces, Lieutenant General Gadot, the architect of today's event, faculty members and administrative staff at the Amity University, and dear students and participants. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my first visit to this great institution, and I am truly overwhelmed by this magnificent campus. I used to see this mainly on the television screen for many, many years. The unique architecture, the grand reception, the phenomenal lineup of distinguished guests and speakers participating in this program for the day, and of course, the vibrance and energy of the youth in this hall. First and foremost, Dr. Atul Chavan, please accept my best wishes and congratulations. Kudos to your father, Dr. Chavan's vision and remarkable foresight, and I greatly appreciate your ability to translate that vision into such an excellent manifestation, a higher educational institute of global repute and excellence. As I understand, Amity University has today spread its wings and presence across regions from India to the Middle East, to United Kingdom, and I take this opportunity to wish you and your entire Amity fraternity all the very best in the future. I would also like to make special mention of Dr. Selvamurthy, Professor Balvinder Shukla, and Lieutenant General Chando for having invited me to be the chief guest here for this event today. Bharat Raksha Vimarsh, a deliberation on defense technology and integrated joint warfare by a group of illustrious defense experts, technologists, and industry representatives, and most importantly, the highly decorated former senior officers of the Indian Armed Forces. I consider it indeed a great privilege and a distinguished honor to be amidst all of you and share my experience and perspective. General Gadot, I should make a special mention here. I went through the full day's agenda and program that you have crafted for the day. My sincere compliments to you and your colleagues for creating an excellent program with sessions on some of the most pertinent topics in the defense sector for our nation. We just heard Dr. Selvamurthy share his thoughts, and as I understand, you have two grueling sessions on the transformation in the landscape of warfare and the impact of technological revolution of military operations. I wish you and the deliberations all the very best for the day ahead. Dear students, ladies and gentlemen, now I come to my main topic that I want to share with you. India in a dynamic world order. Needless to mention that we are amidst a very rapidly evolving world with many unknowns and many known unknowns, already making a VUCA world even more complex and incomprehensible. There are many flashpoints that are there around the world. Right now, there are 31 countries at war with each other. You only hear of Russia and Ukraine, and you hear of Israel and Palestine and Lebanon. But there are 29 others who are doing the same thing in a small and big way, all across the world, right from South America uh, to Africa, to Europe, to Southeast Asia. And this is completely redefining the existing alignments, trade links, and thereby signaling a very major transition in the globalization era, if not the end of it. My own feeling is that globalization is already over. There is no WTO, nobody listens to WTO anymore. So the World Trade Organization, which was the governing body of world trade, has become defunct. I personally have been in the manufacturing business, as your Chancellor said in his talk, for almost 52 years now. And I have seen India in the 70s, the manufacturing in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. I have seen how we missed the Industrial Revolution, the second Industrial Revolution which came, the third Industrial Revolution that came. We are just about catching the train for the next Industrial Revolution. And hopefully, we will not be too late for the fifth Industrial Revolution, which is all going to be about artificial intelligence, digitalization, and technologies connected with that. But, and I also manufacture products in many of the Western countries. There are 6 factories in Germany, 1 in Sweden, 1 in France, 2 in the United States. We are a major supplier to every OEM in the world. Nobody can make a car or a truck without our components. Similarly, we supply into aerospace, jet engines, into ships, and of course now into defense. But never in the past have I ever experienced the kind of confidence and positive impression that India as a country is casting around the world stage, notwithstanding the geopolitical tensions that we face, between Russia on one side and the US on the other side and China in between. I think in every walk of life, India as a country is today at the forefront and has emerged as a major force to reckon with. We may not be as big in size and scale as the United States or China, but clearly we have a roadmap, and as our Honorable Prime Minister has said, 2047, India will become a developed nation, a Viksit, Shashakta nation, and that's the aim. And I think most of us think that it's in our DNA to make that happen. If you see the recently concluded T20 World Cup, you saw a glimpse of what India's future is going to be. In 3 or 4 of the games at the World Cup, we pulled a victory from defeat. And that's young India today. Their ability, their mental strength, their patriotism, and to pull a victory out of defeat. It happened in the game against Pakistan, it happened in the game against Australia, it happened in the game against England, and of course it happened in the game against South Africa, which was the finals. And that is the mood of the nation today. For all you young people who are here, you form a generation where India is rising, India is accelerating, and is determined to lead, and lead all the way. The developed world has seen these kind of spurts in growth at different points in time because of some actions. And I want to explain this because this is very relevant for how India's progression path is going to get generated. If you take the first example of the United States, during World War II, between 1939 and 1944, actually it started in 1939. There's an excellent book on this, by the way. It's called Freedom Force. And I urge students, you better read this if you want to understand defense manufacturing, defense strategy, and what nationalism means as part of this whole process. France and England went to President Roosevelt at that time for help because they were coming to the end of their inventory of aircrafts and guns and ammunition and everything else when they were fighting against the axis of evil, which is Germany, Italy, and Japan to some extent. And the US Congress would not approve the United States government to get into the war. They said it's 5,000 miles away. Why should we engage ourselves in a war that doesn't belong to us? That was their theory. But President Roosevelt was very astute, visionary. He was clear that if they didn't get involved in the war will come to them at some point in time. But he clearly saw that if they didn't get involved, France and England will lose the war. And the whole European geopolitical system would have changed. In a matter of time, the war would have come across the Atlantic. So he decided to get into the war. He created since the US Congress would not approve US participation in the war, he said, I will supply you equipments, but I will lease those equipments to you. And he created that famous lease and sell philosophy, that you leased equipment and it didn't belong to that country. You bought it back after the time period was over. So that prevented that kind of bypass the US Congress as far as he was concerned. And how did he do it? This is very important. He got hold of three people. The first one was a guy named William Knudsen. He was General Motors, president of General Motors at that time, William Knudsen. He got hold of another guy, a shipbuilder called Henry Kaiser, who used to build merchant ships for shipping. And these two guys were brought to Washington. They were working at $1 a year salary. He says, he told them, you have to do this for the country. And they cajoled 30, 40 other companies into joining this entire defense manufacturing production capability. And in 4 years, this is 1939 to 1944, they built 324,000 fighter aircrafts. Okay? We are able to build 10 a year today. They built 324,000 fighter aircrafts in 4 years. 141 aircraft carriers. It takes 15 years to build one aircraft carrier. 8 battleships. If anybody has seen the movie Battleship, the Mighty Missouri, okay, that's the battleship. It's a huge, huge ship. 257,000 artillery pieces, like the artillery that we produce. 807 about this entire story of the Bofors gun. And I think many of you are here from the services and you know this story quite well. In 1984, India signed a contract with Bofors AB, which is a company in Sweden, located in a very small town called Karlskoga. The reason I know all this is because I have a factory in Karlskoga, not in defense, in making automotive products. So I'm very familiar with all those guys out there. And that time Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India. And the deal was supply of some 400 odd guns. It was a 155 millimeter 39 caliber towed gun and a complete TOT package. TOT is transfer of technology. The most misunderstood word in the Ministry of Defense, unfortunately. The whole TOT package, which kind of came in those days in 10 truckloads of paper and drawings and specs, because somehow it didn't come in a disk or a whatever electronic format at that time. So from 1984, and we are talking about 2012, which is a long period of time, 16 plus 12, 28 years, we are not able to make a gun. We were still muddling around with the field gun that the Brits gave us after they left India in 1947. And the rest of the guns were all Russian imported guns, 130 millimeter. And I just took upon myself, as maybe it was a nationalistic spirit in me or whatever it is, I said, why can't we make the gun? And the reason was simple. The gun largely is made out of forgings, metal. The barrel, breech, muzzle, recoil systems, and everything else. So we started with that. We made our first gun and showed it at the Defense Expo in 2012. And many Army officers came, looked at it, laughed, snickered, and went away. They thought it was a joke. And it's not their fault. It's just that that was our mindset in those days. You know, they just couldn't believe that an Indian company is capable of doing these things. From 2012, then DRDO got interested after they looked at our product, and we had a joint program to develop the ATACMS gun, which is now today considered as the most modern artillery gun on this planet. It's not just a gun, it's a fully software-driven gun, it's fully autonomous, and you can be sitting 1,000 miles away and program it and make it function. It's an amazing product and has the longest range of a 155 millimeter gun anywhere in the world today. Then, with the DRDO program, we started developing our own products, which was almost 7, 8 platforms, right from an ultralight gun which we make, which weighs about 5 tons, to the 105 gun that you see here in some photograph right there, the Garuda, and then a lot of guns in between. But after we made a gun, we couldn't find ways to test it. That means go to a firing range and fire some shells and test it. So I was personally quite annoyed and stuck at that point in time. Then in 2016, I had some friends in the United States at an artillery base where they have testing grounds and firing ranges. So I called a friend of mine who was a general from the US Army. And I said, I have this problem. Can you please find a way to test my gun? I'll air freight it to you, and can you test my gun? So he said he will try. Of course, they had to take permission of the US government, the ITAR regulations and all that. But within 45 days, he got all that permission. I sent the gun there. 45 days later, I got the reports of the firing test with the video. And early, I think it was January 2017, there was an army conclave where the late Mr. Parrikar, who was then the defense minister, was the chief guest. I was one of the speakers. And I told Mr. Parrikar, I said, we made guns for the last 4 years, and we couldn't find a way to fire a shot out of this gun in India. And I had to send the gun all the way to the United States and get it fired. And I'm going to show you a video and the test report, and here it is. And they were shocked. Everybody was shocked. The chief of army staff was there. The whole Jingbang lot was there. They were all shocked. Within 1 week, Mr. Parrikar changed the rules, regulations, and allowed private sector to use the testing method. That was a big change over. And the rest is all history. And then things started happening. Then a lot of policies got changed, a lot of procedures got changed. You know, defense is largely driven by policy and procedure. Unfortunately, not driven by technology, whereas it should be driven by technology. And I think in the next 5 years, that is the change that will happen. And if you look at technology, today we don't just work in artillery. Artillery is a small part of what we do, although everything we do today, we only export. We are exporting artillery guns to Europe. Now there is we have got so much of demand because of these wars that are going on, but there is a question of getting permissions from our own MOD as to where we can export, where we cannot export. I mean, that's a different issue altogether. But we make armored vehicles, the M4, and that's another story I want to tell you. During the Galwan crisis, General Naravne was Chief of Army Staff, if I'm right. And they had severe problems of taking vehicles to 18,000 feet. And if you want to go even higher, that some place called Blacktop, I don't know, maybe some generals here will know. It's even higher than 18,000 feet, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So they couldn't find a vehicle to go there, especially vehicles that are armored, protected vehicles. So none of the vehicle manufacturers in India could have a vehicle that could go there. So I told them, I'll make a vehicle for you. And I made this M4 in 3 months and sent this vehicle to Galwan, and it went to the Blacktop, and it was fantastic. It's a vehicle that can take 15 kg TNT blast on the bottom, 50 kg from the side, completely bulletproof, very powerful engine, and everything is made in India. The engine is made in India, the transmission is made in India, it's designed, everything is made in India. So one of the lessons for the defense is, what is Atmanirbharta? Atmanirbharta is not getting a TOT from somebody. Atmanirbharta is designing your own products, creating your own IP. I heard your Vice Chancellor talk about how many patents you have got, etc., etc. That's a great thing, because patents is nothing but your intellectual property. And India needs to now move in the direction of creating products rather than learning how to create products for others. Large part of Indian engineers today are working for others, creating products for others. And we now need to move to create products for ourselves. And that is the only way that India will move ahead and become Atmanirbhar, become Shashakt, and the dream of Prime Minister Modi of 2047 to reach some, let's say, $30 trillion economy can happen and will happen. But it will happen by you people, not by us. Our time is over. Two messages I want to give you. We have three big advantages that, as far as our country is concerned and our young people are concerned. One is our average population right now is 29 years old. Even China has started aging much before us. And their two-child policy, which has just started, will give them benefits 30 years later, not today. In the Western world, in the United States, in Europe, skilled people don't want to work anymore. We have factories in both these places. Can't even find people on the shop floor. Many times, we are hiring people from McDonald's burger joints or places like that who have no knowledge about manufacturing because you need somebody. It's that bad a situation. So you will see a big slowdown in the manufacturing sector in these countries. And a lot of that manufacturing will come to countries like India. India is not the only one, but it will come to countries like India, go to Vietnam, Indonesia, and these countries. So that's a big opportunity that we have, provided we learn how to do that. We can't be just sitting in an office and designing products for companies in the US and companies in Germany and companies in Japan. I think those days are over as people who are servicing other guys' product development. We now need to learn how to make our own products. The second, you take even big companies. Take companies like Boeing, for example. Why is Boeing having so many problems? I'm sure you have heard of all the problems that Boeing has had. It has had software-related problems. It started with that, with the Malaysian airline crash. Then it started with mechanical problems of doors flying off, windows flying off because somebody forgot to put a bolt, somebody forgot to drill a hole in that. And now the latest is probably the US government will ask Boeing to stop production because it's becoming too risky to fly in a Boeing aircraft because of the risk associated with that. So these are the kind of things that are happening.